And thank you for joining us. That's maybe the first time you've had to do a commission prayer meeting through Zoom or GoToMeeting, right? All right, so we will begin our meeting. It's 3 o'clock, and so I'll call our meeting to order. The first item of business that we have is the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I was going to be an awful motion, but did you want to say something else first?
No, I was just going to say we had handled the committee reports and related agenda items on Friday. So
I'll motion that minutes be received and approved for April 9th through April 27th, 2020.
All right. Is there a second to that? And I see a second from Commissioner McCarley. All right. Discussion? Any discussion by the audience? All those in favor signify by showing your hands. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. So there are no requests to appear from the general public, so we will cease as a commission and open up as an equalization board and listen to these equalization hearing proposal from our city attorney, Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Notice is hereby given that assessments have been entered against the lots and parcels of land as shown in the city of Lakeland, Florida, as shown on the agenda. As provided in Chapter 86 of the Code of the City of Lakeland, Florida, said assessments be paid within 30 days with interest at the rate of 8% per annum as hereinafter specifically set forth. This is the portion of the agenda where individuals who have had their property cleaned or cleared by the city can ask questions or object to the assessment of liens against their property as a result of those services. Kevin, I don't know if we have any callers on the line. I've also advised the front desk at City Hall of this and to be notified if anyone shows up at City Hall wanting to speak on that. And I'll just be monitoring that during the meeting if someone does show up at some point in the meeting and advise you of that. I guess the first order would be to see whether someone is calling in.
Palmer, there are 2 callers. So we have 2 callers on the line. If they would like to address the city commission regarding the lots clearing and cleaning, please do so now. Sounds like you're good to go.
And once again, I'll let you know if someone shows up physically.
All right, so not having any addressing on the lot, pardon? We need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
I'm getting a little funky. That may just be. Okay, motion to approve. Very good. And a second from Commissioner McCarley. Any discussion by the board? None. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. We cease meeting as a equalization board and adjourn as a city commission, and we'll listen to public hearings A1.
Thank you. We have 2 ordinances for second reading and adoption and public hearing. The first is proposed ordinance number 20-019, an ordinance relating to local government comprehensive planning, making findings, providing for small scale amendment number LUS 19-012 to a certain portion of the future land use map of the Lakeland Comprehensive Plan 2010-2020, changing the future land use designation on approximately 7.51 acres located south of I-4 and north of the villages of Bridgewater, Village 3, from recreation to residential, to residential low, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Move to approve. Second.
I believe you're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, a motion to approve by Commissioner Reed and a second by Commissioner McLeod. Any discussion by commissioners? Any discussion by the audience?
Kevin, there were a couple of callers on the line.
Yes, so again, we have 2 callers on the line. Don't know if they are just listening or if they would like to speak on this topic. So, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to address those callers and see if they have an interest.
Okay. Very good. So this is, if you are a caller that would like to address the proposal for ordinance 20-019, 20-019 on this small scale amendment. Please address the commissioners.
This is Jason Allagood with Chastain Skillman.
Yes, Jason. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. I just wanted to let you know that I am attending. I was turned away at the door earlier, so I am here in case there are questions that need to be answered.
Very good. Thanks, Jason. And I don't see any other questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. With hand. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes.
Next is proposed ordinance number 20-020, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, amending ordinance 4322 as amended to provide for a modification to plan unit development zoning to allow for development of single-family residential uses as part of the villages of Bridgewater, Village 14 on approximately 7.51 acres located south of I-4 and north of the villages of Bridgewater, Village 3, changing the context district for the property to suburban neighborhood, providing conditions, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Move to approve.
I
Second.
see a motion approved by Commissioner Reed and a second by Commissioner Walker. Discussion by commissioners. Hearing none. Any discussion on this from anyone as a caller? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same. Also unanimously passes. That brings us to miscellaneous, sir.
Yes, the next item is a report in public hearing that is required as part of the City of Lakeland's comprehensive plan certification with the state of Florida, which allows us to expedite the review of our amendments to our comprehensive plan future land use map, and as well as text amendments. Teresa Mayo, I believe, is here and will be making the presentation.
Good afternoon. Kevin, do I have access to the screen?
Yeah, I'm working on it right now. Give me 1 second.
While Kevin does that, I'll just begin the introduction by saying that you heard some about this at Friday's agenda study and how the City of Lakeland is one of the few local governments that holds this certification through the Department of Economic Opportunity. The certification has basically been placed on the City of Lakeland because it's shown a demonstrated knowledge and also effectiveness in implementing its comprehensive plan and maintaining city boundaries that are effectively compact and where we want to direct growth into that area. I believe now I have the screen sharing, and the first exhibit that you'll see here is a map that shows where we have this certification within. So for the most part, it's the City of Lakeland city limits, excluding that portion of the city that falls within the Green Swamp area of critical state concern. So within the certification area, this city enjoys an expedited process for comprehensive land use map amendments. Each year, we prepare a report to the Department of Economic Opportunity, and as part of that report, we have to show where we've had annexation and where we've had changes in future land use. So in 2019, there was one area that was annexed way up in the northeast part of the city. It was a 10-acre site within the Green Swamp. So because of that, it does not come into the certification area, but it is within the city limits. There were several other areas that had future land use map changes. And I think my screen just changed. There were 3 areas where there were land use changes. The first one was up here off of Kathleen. That was a small site to apply business park future land use. There was another small parcel down here off of South Florida and Alamo to apply a commercial future land use designation. And then back to that property that was annexed, that also received business park annexation. And this slide here is just a summary of where those land use amendments were located. And together now within the city, we have approximately 48,000 acres with a population of 107,000. Key to the report is a table that you'll find in the back that's labeled as Exhibit D. And that is a table that outlines certain measurements that the state has set forth with the city in an agreement between the two parties. So every year we update those measurements, and with the hope of demonstrating that we are either exceeding or maintaining those limits or thresholds, and for the most part we are. We anticipate that with the completion of our comprehensive plan update at the end of this year, that those measurements would likewise be amended, and that we would reflect those in changes to the agreement with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available if you have any questions.
So are there any questions by commissioners on this anew? I do not see any. Oh, I see Commissioner I'm sorry. I just went
McLeod.
Commissioner McLeod. My goodness.
You have a lot to juggle, Mr. Mayor. Just really quickly, Teresa, does the department ever come back with recommendations or suggested changes once we submit this report, or is it this stage, is it pretty much been agreed upon by them as well?
At this stage, it's pretty much just a routine effort. It's more ministerial. And I think that probably if they went through the report and saw something out of the ordinary, a dramatic change away from what those measurements are, then there would likely be comment or contact. But we haven't had any real communication with them other than when we occasionally have amendments. And I should have mentioned that a couple of months ago, you did approve an amendment to that agreement to allow us to have additional time to prepare this report. And we will be submitting it to them by the end of this month.
Thank you.
Excellent question. There is no action required for this other than just a presentation, correct?
It is a public hearing, and then we would be transmitting the report to the Department of Economic Opportunity.
Very good. If there are no other questions, we can proceed. Thank you, Teresa, very much. We have no report from the Community Redevelopment Agency, and that brings us to City Manager.
Well, just backing up for a minute, I think it needs to be opened up for public hearing if there's any member of the public.
Let's go back. I apologize for that. So back to the Local Government Comprehensive Plan certification discussion that Ms. Mayo just covered. Are there any callers who would like to ask any questions about that plan at all?
And then it would be a motion to approve the report for transmittal to the Department of Economic Opportunity.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Reed, and then second by Commissioner Walker. Discussion by commissioners. Again, any discussion by the, oh yes, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, we're very fortunate that we have this opportunity and we've got this certification that streamlines our system. And then it gives us, basically, we have home rule on something for a change. So I'm very glad that we have this, and our development department has been very thorough, and it's a great opportunity for the city of Lakeland.
Hear, hear, sir. Any other comments? All right. And we have already asked for any from the public, so we will get a vote on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same. With their hands, unanimously passes. All right, that brings me to City Manager report. I apologize for.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commission. No problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commission. We have two items under the City Manager. The first one is a discretionary funding for Lakeland Linder International Airport under the current CARES Act. This CARES Act was signed into law by the President in March. It included $10 billion in funds to be awarded as economic relief to eligible U.S. airports affected by the prevention of, preparation for, and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. These funds are distributed using various formulas for all airports that are part of the national airport system. The Lakeland Linder International has been notified that their share of these discretionary funds amounts to $157,000. They intend to use the funds toward operational expenses such as payroll, other operating costs, or payment of debt service. The airport will be receiving the award within the coming weeks, and at this time seeks approval of the commission to execute the grant upon the receipt of the award. Thus, it is requested that the commission authorize an increase in revenues of $157,000 from the FAA upon receipt, and no appropriations are required at this time.
Right, so is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Franklin, and then seconded by Commissioner Reed. All right, discussion. Mr. Conrad, you might want to weigh in on this just publicly so that we can have your view use.
Sure. Well, thank you all. Happy afternoon. These funds are, we're able to use for operational expenses. So unlike what you usually see from the FAA or just grants for infrastructure projects, these are funds we can use specifically for our operations here at the airport. So whether it's our airport operations team, field maintenance, payroll, if we had some deferrals or things or some tenants fell out because of what we're all dealing with, we would be able to use those funds to recoup any losses that we would see. So we're very fortunate to get them. There's a formula that was used specifically for all the general aviation airports, and as we are recognized as a national airport in NIPIAS, we received the highest amount possible for general aviation airports. So we're just grateful to have it because it will help us as we move forward.
Wonderful. Any other discussion by commissioners? Any discussion on this by the audience? Any callers that would like to weigh in on this particular grant? Hearing none. This is a voice vote. All those in favor reflect by raising your hand. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Item B, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second item is an award of an RFP for broker consulting services for property and casualty insurance to Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services. This was discussed at length on Friday, and the modifications that were requested by the commission have been made. Arthur J. Gallagher happens to be the current broker. We went ahead and put out an RFP earlier this year and sent out in January to 80 prospective bidders, only one which responded, that being Gallagher. These services provide insurance consulting and brokerage services for coverage lines, including but not limited to excess workers' comp, property and boiler machinery, inland marine, excess liability, public officials, and employment practices, aviation, sculpture, rail cars, cyber, and crime coverage. Gallagher has proposed a flat fee, annual flat fee for policies and services of $175,000. This fee is for 2020, which includes all policies listed on this report. Once a new contract begins, all lines that previously included commission will have commission removed, as the compensation for these lines of coverage premium will move from included in the premiums to a flat fee separately. The actual increase in total compensation in 2020 will be $14,614. This increase will be fixed for the term of the contract. Any new lines of coverage during this term of the contract, including builder's risk or other one-time placements policies, will include commission, as they are in addition to the scope within the RFP. So it's being recommended the commission approve the awarding of this RFP to Gallagher Risk Management Services and authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the agreement administering a flat fee guarantee effective June 1st of this year through May 31st, 2024. However, it is a 2-year contract firm with 2 one-year renewals, and we obviously can go out to bid anytime as we get close to that 2-year ending of this initial contract.
All right, so is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner McLeod, and then second from Commissioner Walker. My Siri thought I said something to her. Okay, I don't know what I said. And I think that was a third from Siri on this particular motion. Yes, Commissioner Reed.
we're up for discussion at this point. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Again, I thought on Friday we discussed that this would be for a 2-year period, and then we would maybe put out a new RFP and have a 90-day period that would take place versus a 30-day. Is that a
That's
fair
correct.
statement?
That's correct. After 2, obviously, as we enter in our second year, an RFP can be put out at any time. If nothing has been solidified by then, there are options for 1-year renewals over the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Joyce, any comment on that?
No, we heard what you requested, and as we approach that time frame, we'll bring it forward to go out for RFP.
Great. Any other questions?
The contract has been modified to provide for a 2-year term with 2 1-year renewals,
1-year renewals.
same rate.
Commissioner Franklin, that good from your perspective? That's a thumbs up. All right. Any other discussion by commissioners? Commissioner Walker.
I just wanted to share, Mr. Mayor, and thank you that I think it was good that we, had the kind of discussion we did have on Friday, and being able to have the kind of dialogue, especially when you have some of us, especially share the sentiments, and as I think Commissioner Franklin shared on Friday, as well as Commissioner Reed and myself, there's been a long-standing kind of a arrangement with Gallagher, as I know it has been for years past. But certainly, moving forward, I think it's important that we do what we've done to modify this particular arrangement and give some credence to moving forward, how we can best get other, hopefully, vendors to want to come in and look at approaching the situation as best. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any additional comments? Are there any additional comments from the public via phone? Okay, hearing none. This is a hand vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And opposed, same. Unanimously passes.
We have nothing further under city manager, sir.
And one other comment I'm going to make while we're in the city manager section as a recommendation that we don't necessarily have built in here, and we talked about going back to our regular meeting schedule, is we probably ought to do a COVID update piece for the next several months in your report that we build into that on a weekly basis. And having just done one, I think we're fine. But any comments by commissioners on that? Agree? Okay.
No problem. We will do it.
Thank you. City Attorney, that brings us to resolutions.
2 resolutions for adoption today. First is proposed resolution number 20-021, a resolution relating to assessments, determining the necessity for having cleaned and cleared certain properties within the city of Lakeland, providing for the assessment of liens against such property for expenses incurred in the cleaning and clearing thereof, providing an effective date.
All right. So is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Walker and a second by Commissioner Franklin. So you got on there eventually, sir. Discussion. Okay, hearing none from commissioners, and this relates back to our equalization board hearing. Are there any comments from any citizens? Hearing none. This is a resolution. We will go in roll call order, and I'm going to do this for my recommendation from City Clerk Coos because she gave me this handy sheet to be able to use. Let's see, which end I start? All right, so we'll start with Commissioner Franklin.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Commissioner McCarley?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Madden?
Aye.
Commissioner McLeod?
Aye.
Unanimously passes. Less efficient to do resolutions by Zoom or go to meeting. And the second one, sir.
Yes, second is proposed resolution number 20-022, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida, relating to planning, amending the City of Lakeland Local Government Certification Plan, Local Government Conference of Planning Certification Program Agreement, providing for an amended boundary description of the certified area, making findings, providing an effective date.
All right, is there a motion to approve? Commissioner Reed, and then seconded by Commissioner McCarley. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? Any phone callers? Hearing none, we'll do a reverse roll call vote on this. Commissioner McLeod.
Aye.
Commissioner Madden.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
And myself, yes. Commissioner McCarley.
Yes.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
And Commissioner Franklin.
Aye.
Unanimously supported. That brings us then to C2.
Thank you. On Friday, we had some technical problems where we went over some of the items that are on consent agenda today, but I do understand, my understanding is that those items were recorded and are available for viewing, so I won't go over those again, but if there's any member of the audience that wants a description of any of the consent agenda items, we can do that. C2 is simply the legal fee report for your information. Those are consistent with historical averages. If there aren't any questions, I'll move to C3.
Are there any questions or comments on that report? Okay, let's go to C3.
All right, C3 is a loan agreement with Impeccable Construction, Inc. Of Lakeland for construction of two new affordable single-family homes. The city has SHIP funds available in the amount of $120,000 for the construction of two new houses. It would be $60,000 per home. Impeccable Construction responded to an RFP issued by the purchasing department. They were one of 4 respondents, and they were the successful respondent. Were selected by the selection committee. They own vacant properties at 2040 and 2052 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. So under this program, the city will make a loan to Impeccable Construction of $120,000 for them to construct 2 houses, a house on each of those properties. And then they would pay back the loan with interest at 2% upon CO and selling the property to income qualified buyers. That's recommended for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Walker, and a second by Commissioner McCarley. All right, discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by any callers? Hearing none. All those in favor, this is a hand vote, signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes.
The last non-consent agenda item under miscellaneous is a third extension of the agreement with Ovation Food Services, LP, doing business as Spectra Food Services and Hospitality for the provision of concession services at the RP Funding Center. Their current contract was scheduled to expire on June 30th of this year. The RP Funding Center went through an RFP process that they began in February. Due to the COVID-19 issue, they have made the decision to seek to extend the current contract with Spectra for an additional year and get through the RFP process next year. That will not only allow us to get through these difficult current times, but also to allow for a possible transition at the completion of the RFP process next year during the slower summer months. In addition to the extension of the term of the agreement, the commission structure has been reworked slightly. It's been simplified. Spectra will be paid, or Spectra will pay the city commissions on their gross receipts of 26%, which is approximately the average that Spectra has been paying to the city over the last couple of years as well. There's a guaranteed minimum fee to Spectra in this agreement of $65,000. That's recommended for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Walker, and then a second? Commissioner Franklin. Discussion by commissioners. This gives us a bridge opportunity for everybody to get to normalcy. Any discussion by callers? This is also a voice hand vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye, or raising your hand. Aye. All those opposed, same. Yet that also unanimously passes. What else, sir?
We have one item that was considered by the utility committee that is on this agenda for final approval that Ramona will present.
Yes, the only item that we have is an amendment to agreement with Doble Engineering Company. This is to provide equipment and database comparison services for Lakeland Electric's transformers. This received favorable consideration from the utility committee earlier today. This essentially extends the term for a 3-year, additional 3 years, updates the annual rates, as well as some of the equipment and services being provided. It's a $46,190 per year contract cost for a total of $138,570 for the 3-year term, which would be effective with a retroactive date of May 1st, 2020. And this is contained in FY 2020 Lakeland Electric's budget. We'd ask for your approval.
A motion to approve. Commissioner McCarley, and a second by Commissioner McLeod. This was discussed at our utility committee meeting today and unanimously approved by the utility committee as well. Any discussion by commissioners? Any discussion by callers? Hearing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, same. Also unanimously passes. Thank you very much, Ms. Sirianni. And that brings us to the audience portion of our meeting. So if there are any callers, Kevin, could you facilitate this?
Mr. Mayor, it looks like all of our unknown callers have dropped off. So they were either listening for a particular agenda item or they were part of the earlier discussion. So at this point in time, you have no callers on the line.
Very good. So that allows us to talk about things that the commissioners would like to bring up. So Commissioner McCarley.
Two happy things. You can see my orange bird for National Orange Juice Day. So I just want to say thank you to all the ag industry and Department of Citrus, and they've seen a peak on orange juice sales. Yay!
That's great.
Throughout the COVID virus. So kudos to our growers and our associations throughout Polk County. We used to be the world producer of citrus many years ago, and now we're seeing a resurgence, hopefully, and amid all of the studies and research, we're trying to figure out greening and all that good stuff. But I just want to give kudos out to Department of Citrus and National Drink Orange Juice Day. You can Instagram it, hashtag NOJD 2020, and cheers your orange juice today. And I'm a big fan of Orange Bird, which you guys don't get to see in my office at work. And then also, I just wanted to say, Mother's Day is coming up a week from yesterday. And even though Mrs. Matt and I are the only two mothers on the commission right now, Mrs. Coos is the clerk, and she's a mom too. But I know all of you have moms on the commission and are married to them. And I just wanted to say, during this time, it's been really crazy. And I've been very reflective on the time that I was a single mom. I was widowed and not remarried for several years and was raising 2 kids by myself. And I have to say that was the hardest job ever. So to all the single parents out there, whether you're a mother or a father and you're dealing with COVID and you're homeschooling and you're working to keep your lights on and you're trying to keep your family fed and everything else that's going on, that we see you and appreciate you and want to wish you a very, very happy Mother's Day, that all your work is not going unnoticed. It might be unpaid like us, but it's not unnoticed. And so I just wanted to give a shout out because we're in week 7 and, it's still, even though we're opening things back up, it's really hard for parents right now, working parents, essential workers. And you're having to do a lot. So we're all in it together and we see you. I have people online right now. We have 3 AP tests coming up in the next few weeks that will be online at home, which is advanced placement. And I know that for me, I have a wonderful husband now and stepdad to my kids that pitches in and is awesome. And I appreciate him, but I just wanted to recognize all the moms out there, my mom included, and all the grandmothers and everybody who worked so hard to take care of their families. So happy Mother's Day, and drink some more orange juice when you get home.
Cheers. Excellent. Commissioner Walker, and then Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to see if I can have city manager give us updates, if you could, on 3 things that I'm having a pressing need to know about, plus a couple of, I guess, few citizens asking about it as well. And they are, and I have what order you want to share with it, Mr. Delgado. Summer programming update as far as summer programs, getting calls about that now. Also, I'll set up for next week as we begin our strategic planning session. I know we're supposed to be meeting at the RP Funding Center, but can you give us an update on how that's been arranged? Lastly, an update on the old LE building that used to be on, you used to be right there on East Parker, the redesign or remodeling or reconstruction, whatever you ever call it, that particular facility. And again, lastly, I do agree with you as well, Miss Commissioner McCauley, wishing all the mothers and all the females, and send some fathers. Sometimes, we play in that mother's role. I had to do the same thing you did some years back, being both mother and father, the loss of a former spouse. So we do wish all of them happy Mother's Day. So in that order, you want to give us those updates, Mr. Delgado? I receive it. Thank you so much, very much now.
I'll start with the retreat on the 12th and 13th. We're planning to meet at the RP Funding Center. Staff's been meeting very closely with Dr. Collins, who's facilitating. Obviously, Dr. Collins had a chance to meet with each and every one of you individually, so he's utilizing that as his template for putting together the retreat. He asked staff to do a lot of background work, which we're finalizing, knocking on wood this week, and then we'll be ready for you. It's all going to be at the RP Funding Center, so it'll be in a very big room, which will allow each of you to have greater than 6 feet distance from each other. Dr. Collins obviously wanted to meet together because it's very difficult doing something of that nature virtually. While it's not difficult doing these meetings, but having an open conversation on strategic planning might be a little bit more difficult. And so we'll be meeting all together, though there's only going to be, I think, 13 or 14 specific people in the room, as well as technical assistants, as we've had in the past. So it's a big room with only a handful of us there. Speakers will come in and out. And then ultimately, I can't read that, Mr. Mayor.
But it requires that we get our value surveys in. Very important.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't done that, please go ahead and do that. But speakers will be coming in and out. We might have some virtual speakers also. So we're going to try to meet all of the social distancing protocols. We'll be doing lunches via brown bags. So we'll be bringing those in. They'll be individual. You won't have to touch anybody's buffet. There'll be individual lunches. And then obviously it's a day and a half process. And so we're looking forward to that. But yes, we're meeting together, but we'll be probably waving at each other from across the room in order to maintain the social distancing. Regarding the LE Lake Parker, obviously we had put that on hold because of some cost related issues. At the time it was over budget, and we were taking a look at some value engineering. That we are doing some project out there, and that's really to facilitate the need for our water wastewater department distribution center that's out there, but we're holding off on doing any type of building, obviously because of budgetary reasons at this point. And then finally, summer camps. Bob Donahue and his staff are taking a look at ways to do that within a very proper social distancing manner, creating some SOPs. We haven't made a decision as of yet if it's going to be able to work. I can tell you though, many of our counterparts around the county are not doing summer camps or any type of pool programs, summer golf or swimming lessons. Those include the Polk County, Auburndale, Davenport, Lake Wales, Bartow, and Lake Alfred. Winter Haven is right now in the process of doing what we're doing, and that's exploring how to do this safely and if they can be done safely. Obviously, many people are concerned about liabilities, and basically the public's opinion of taking in 25 kids and maintaining them for the day and how to do that in a safe and in an efficient and fair manner. right now, the only ones that I see that have been confirmed to date are Haines City. They're planning to have a summer program, though modified significantly. No field trips. I'm not sure what their programming is. And Fort Meade is planning to only have 1 month worth of summer programming and not to start that until July. So that is the update on the summer camp program.
If I may ask, because I understand there's some nonprofits that are still planning on doing summer programming and such, if I understand that correctly. And,
I'm not aware of that. We can check on that.
I'm not aware of that either.
okay, well, that's why one of the ones that called me about it is a nonprofit and plan on doing something. And I think when I had a call from another person about it, of course, the challenge again, as you mentioned, is very well received. Well, how can we do something and hopefully be supportive of, you know, where we've been locked down, shut in so long now, and having to have some kind of relief, especially for parents and households, if it can be done, and it can be done safely, and it can be done, you know, so where we can have allow some latitude for our children and for especially with parents now having to go back to work. What are we going to do? You know, how we can children staying at home or not being able to be supervised properly at home, and summer camps or summer programs have been always the answer, or sort of the answer for that kind of situation. So I like to see what we can come up with, and I understand talking with a couple of our staff members that there is a plan, and their plan maybe can be operational and be supportive for these parents who are having to go back to work now, as it is, so their children can be somewhere safely without being at home. And, you know, an idle child at home can cause other problems, you know, that we will have then to tend to being a city of our size. So I would like to hear what's going on and what has been shared among our P&R department, Public and Recreation, Parks and Recreation Department about how can we do it and what can be done to support the situation at hand.
Well, if we're able to go ahead and do it in a safe manner, obviously understanding the current landscape, the governor has recently, as last week only said, still 10 and under can congregate in one place. And obviously that has to change significantly. But if we're able to do it in a safe manner, we will not be having the same numbers we've had in the past. We won't be able to accommodate as many children because we have yet to date gotten any word from the school board on whether we can use any of their facilities. So it might be only just a handful of city facilities. So that's part of the discussion, waiting on the school board to let us know whether we can use any of their facilities at all. And obviously, so many other cities are not doing this. And so I don't know how it impacts us also when other people want to utilize it summer camp, and especially the one the city provides.
Sure, and I would agree. I have no disagreement with what your comments are, Mr. City Manager. But I do understand too that they can present some other challenges that we may have to face if we cannot, you know, do it. And of course, being done, you know, in a proper way, safe way, because 25, 50 students, if we can do it, or children, I should say, excuse me, not students, but 25 children, 50 children, 75 children in a proper way in some larger facilities that we do have is better than zero. And that's where I'm looking at and hearing from parents. I know in some, especially areas of my city that can get these things, with having to go back to work, can cause other problems that they may be faced with, and we don't want to see those challenges happen as well. So again, it's all something I'm sure we can all discuss, and hopefully discuss is all being done by our P&R Parks and Recreation Department to help enhance or say where and how and why or who, how can it happen. And that's my particular concern at this point.
I'm going to have Mr. Brossart weigh in here, and then I'd like to make a comment too. Go ahead, Michael. Wait,
yes, good afternoon. Back to the question, can you hear me okay?
Kind of. Talk closer, maybe.
Closer.
Yes, that's better.
See if that works.
Yes, sir.
So back to the question about the water building that Commissioner Walker had asked about. Richard Baker just texted me that they have finished phase 1 slab, which is the relocation of the switch that is located in the center of the Park Street building. As the slab is ready, the steel building will be placed. Once that is complete, then they'll work on phase 2. Because these monies were already borrowed, we have to expend them, so we won't be able to pause on this piece. It is, as Tony had alluded to, it is a much smaller project than what was originally created with taking all of the folks that say, professionals that were Glendale and in the LE admin building and moving them all into that location. This is quite a bit smaller project than that. But just as an update, that's what we had just found out.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Mr. Brozart, so I will make sure, because you're kind of, cutting in and out there. So I know the old LE building there on Parker Street, what was planned, and as Mr. Delgado already shared, we know it has been changed or modified. And if I hear you correct, then, so the usage is where we're moving toward the water department using that particular ground or that particular facility is majority of what will be done for water department uses versus anything else. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. Water is going to use it primarily. Mike Borg's group that is out there right now that is in a very antiquated building requiring a lot of upgrades, and this was a less expensive way of getting the space, lay down space that they need, and actually centralize some of the other water operations around the city without bringing all the admin folks from LE admin out there.
Yeah, so strictly distribution and transport.
All right. Thank you so very much for the update. Appreciate that.
I'd like to flip back to the July discussion and camps. And as a parent, I certainly have spent a lot of my life planning for those kinds of things too. Here's what I would recommend. I would recommend to parents that they anticipate they won't have any programs, that they start to build some plans about what they will do instead of having any programs, because we're subject to not only the governor's decision on this, but the manning and finding of people and the numbers of kids that can go, that could participate. And as Mr. Delgado has talked about, it'd be a reduced amount. I think it will be very difficult for many of the historically camp providers to be engaged this summer. That what they'll do instead is use this as a time and a break to make sure we prepare as effectively for fall schooling without any kinds of asymptomatic carriers affecting families, because kids play and they play close, and it's hard to manage all of that. So if I were a parent, my recommendation would be to you to assume that there won't be anything, watch to see if there can be something. And if you could engage with a program like that, that's great. And be as drastic as necessary now to plan for the fact that you won't have a program for them. That's just personal recommendation as a father of kids who spent lots of times in camps.
And I can appreciate that comment, Mr. Mayor. But everybody does not have what you have. Everybody
agree.
And everybody's not, can do what many of us can do. Sure. So, we do have situations, and I think it's incumbent upon us, because they look to these situations if it can be done. And again, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying it can be done. But if it can, why not? Why don't we look at the can part of it versus the cannot part of it?
And I'm with you, Commissioner Walker, completely. I'm talking about on the city side that we are doing that. I'm just saying on the personal side, I plan to try and talk to everybody I could that are friends or family that might be able to help and plan in that process for the fact there may not be camps, so that you can spend the time now planning.
And that's all I'm asking. If we can make it happen for those families who may need that kind of support, and it may not be every family in Lakeland, and that may not be, but I got that. And we have families have to make those decisions, but there are some families that may have to make a decision and say, I can't leave my children at home while I try to go to work and provide. And being coming out of this situation that we're coming out of now, where maybe someone have not worked. And that's the only thing I ask, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Delgado.
I agree with you 100%. I'm with you. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Tony, you may have said this, but when do we have to make some of these decisions? There is some time between now and July. You mentioned cities that maybe are doing things later in the summer, but I'm guessing the clock is ticking on that timetable, and so that's one question. And yeah,
we're just awaiting to get some information from the school board. At that time, I can provide you a report.
Thank you, because I hear both arguments, and I think you both make good points, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Walker. If there's a way we can do something later in the summer, that would be wonderful, but we recognize that may not be possible. So we're trying to figure that out and do it when we're kind of up against the clock. I know there's a lot of logistics that are in play as well. So I do look forward to hearing what you come back with, Tony, and what some of those recommendations would be.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two brief points. The first one addressed to Palmer. Unfortunately, when we were logging on, I had a little bit of difficulty. And on the consent agenda, on number 5, did we put in that part about the renewal term at the area?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The city would not pay for the value of the building at the expiration of the term.
Thank you. Okay. Last, there again, I know now that the city is basically opened up again, and our golf course is heavily utilized, and our paths are being utilized, and our restaurants and retail are being on a limited basis. Everybody's been cooped up for a while, and I anticipate heavy use. Some restaurant friends of mine told me don't even come because they know they're already going to be inundated. But I just wanted to say congratulations to our citizens. Number one, please practice social distancing. We do not want to go through this lockdown, for lack of a better word, in the future. And I look forward to seeing some of you guys out and about. And I'm ready to get out of the house myself. And so thank you very much. And that's it for all I have to say.
City Manager Delgado.
Just a quick update. People are certainly understanding of what's going on. I can tell you, golf course is packed, but they're all in individual carts, and it was packed all weekend. I'm hoping folks are practicing that social distancing when they're on the greens. I spent most of the weekend driving around town, taking a look at the parks as they were open, and people are certainly practicing that. There wasn't a large crowd at Lake Hollingsworth, not to what we've seen prior to closing it. It's a lot better. People are using Lake Mirror early in the morning. I see them when I get into work and a number of things. So Commissioner Reed, I want to thank you for saying that, but obviously folks have taken to heart and we're not being inundated as we feared. So I think they understand completely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I rode my bike around on Saturday and found all different parks and areas and found people just flourishing and so happy to be out. It was fun to be able to see the joy on their faces. Who else has something to share? Commissioner Franklin?
Yes, Mayor. And just to kind of follow up on those thoughts, it was great to see folks out walking the trail, Lake Hollingsworth. I know I drove by Cleveland Heights, and from the holes that I could see, it looked pretty full, and I saw lots of favorable commentary on social media about it. I do have concern, though, about a number of our businesses that are still unable to open per the governor's latest guidance. And I know he's being challenged on some of that, specifically with barbershops by the city of Orlando. We've got a lot of these folks that cannot survive another month or so out of work. And I've spoken with some of them. And, just in the same way that we're being responsible at the golf course, I know barbershops that are wearing surgical masks, gloves, disinfecting between every customer. And these are folks that are going outside the line now, making people wait in the parking lot, appointment only. but have basically said, fine, come find me. Otherwise I'm out of business. I'm going to lose the business I have, and they're willing to take those chances. I would just like to see us support trying to get those people back open and on their feet as soon as possible, assuming they can use proper procedures.
Well, and we are. We are trying to communicate an earlier release of that at the governor's office level. And secondly, CFTC is working with the county to create a small business relief fund, which hopefully can help some of those people that might not have had funds available in other arenas. And this is premature to assume it will be available. But as we have to bridge timing, the relief fund helps. If we can urge the governor, and he met with salon owners on Saturday. He had a hearing and a kind of a town hall with them. So the very willingness to do that to me is a pretty good indicator he's feeling the pressure to try and make a decision. And ideally, it would probably be about a May 18th decision at the earliest. Otherwise, I think it's almost going to be a certainty for June 1st. As a guess, that's a guess, just one person's guess. Commissioner Walker.
And I will concur, Commissioner Franklin, with what you just shared. And many of those I call those businesses, especially your hair care and that kind of thing. We know where they fall and who they are, the majority of it. And I think as soon as we can get something that would help support getting those businesses back open again, it would be very much appreciated. I'm sure. Just as we got this email from the gentleman, I think today, talking about his particular situation and such, and what kind of relief can be given to him to support him. But he's not the only one, as we all know. There's many others, not only just in our city, but across the state, as has been mentioned by the mayor. So I think I know it's challenging, to make sure that it can be done safely and done in a way that won't bring about any other repercussion. But certainly, if we can do something to help support them or support this movement, I'm all for it.
I think, too, some of the things that the governor wants to get into place, and I'm only watching as a third party like you are, I don't have any inside track on this, is that we need to have enough tests populated so that we can start to be able to make sure that people have the availability for, if you have case trackers who are working to try and find the history of people who have been with people employed, that some of that history then, of course, has to be accompanied with the availability of testing. So there's some timing of all of that synchronization taking place as a concern too. But Commissioner Franklin, you're absolutely right. These people are in a perilous cash flow scenario because they didn't get any other additional aid, and they're one-on-one businesses in many cases. Other commissioners? Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention, as we look toward next week in strategic planning, just to put out there to encourage residents to continue to communicate with us and give us feedback. I know we had the survey that was out back in February, but so many things have changed since then. And I think it's valuable for us as we go into those sessions. And I know many of us are looking forward to next week. It's an opportunity to look out and to vision for our city. And we've had our plate full with the here and now and the immediate of a lot of the decisions that have had to be made. But next week being a time to plan and vision for the city and really do some good work as a commission. And so I'm excited about it as my first strategic planning session as a commissioner, but just encouraging people to, if you have thoughts and maybe you didn't fill out the survey, or even if you did, to continue to stay in touch with us, email us, citycommission@lakelandgov.net. I know many people know that email address, but there may be some who don't. And just to know that feedback is important to us.
Very much so. Excellent word. Don't forget the census. I have to line this up. The census. If you have not done the census, we are in the midst of that, and the deadline's been extended. This is extremely important, and we got some good information on that today. and I know the communications department is working to follow up. Please use your emails or your social media as commissioners to tag a couple of those and get those out, just to encourage people in your world to participate in the census. But we have had good response, and we actually are leading the state and the county at the present time in terms of our response. But it's 56%. So, you know, we have 44% that need a response still. All right, Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for sharing. And again, kudos to our city manager and our communications director, Mr. Cook, for getting that video, you know, that we all talked about. You know, we had been out, because I think you in it, Mr. Mayor, and several of our citizens throughout the city are part of that video, and it's both in English and Spanish. So it was sent to us, I think, earlier today. So we're able to get it out to those different groups, or especially churches that may need to share it with their different memberships or groups of people that need to hear it or be aware of it. So thank you again for getting it out to us.
Any other comments by commissioners? Commissioner Madden, I would have been disappointed if you had not said something.
You know, I'm happy after the park's open, so I don't have to share that. But I did have a couple of questions. So one, I've had several people, I think it's during a hurricane or, you know, certainly a pandemic, when people's trash schedules are interrupted, or, you know, people wonder who actually does their service and don't know they live in the county instead of the city. And they say, well, why aren't we part of the city, or how would we annex? And why isn't South Lakeland the city of Lakeland? I mean, it seems like it's either an election and they wonder why they aren't allowed to vote.
We lost your audio all of a sudden. So when you said we're allowed to vote, if it were an election or they were allowed to vote.
Yeah, sorry, Chris Bailey is going to be on to me because it's my internet. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I told all of the kids to get off their devices, but it's still a little sketchy. But when Dr. Childs talked about, you know, the LE customers and having that extra service charge, you know, I don't know. I know y'all have explained this to me, but for the life of me, I can't remember. Is it a kind of a citizens initiative that would say we want to be annexed? I know it's if a building wants to build in the city, they request annexation, but I see Tony's raising his hand.
Yeah, Tony.
Okay. On the annexation question, it could be twofold. You know, when somebody starts using our water utility services, we can have an annexation agreement with them direct. We see that with a lot of businesses that are just outside of the city incorporated area. And with that water and wastewater utilities connection, we have the right to go ahead and annex them in at our discretion. But as far as annexation of bigger communities, it's twofold. Yes, folks in that community could obviously sign cards, do those type of things in order to go ahead and come to the city with a request for annexation, or we could obviously take a look at areas and then we do the campaign. We're out there talking to the citizens about our wants to annex, and then obviously they have to go ahead and be part of that process and approval setting. There's a lot of things that go into annexation. Obviously, we have to, from a city perspective, take a look at cost for service, because our requirements might be strict, and in some areas stricter than what the county currently has. Everything from code enforcement issues to how roads should look, how sidewalks should be built, being able to provide services such as police and fire into that area. And so there's a cost associated with that we have to go ahead and explore, reevaluate, and develop before the annexation process actually ends. It's a great question, because it's one of the questions that someone brought up during our in preparation for strategic planning. And so Dr. Collins has put together a short presentation, or had us put together a short presentation on annexation itself. So you'll see that next week, and we'll give you all the bullet points of things that you must evaluate as City Commission along with staff, if it makes sense to annex some areas just outside the city.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that, City Manager. And then another question. Okay,
sometimes I feel like I'm not exactly sure about my calendar, what is still on and what's been canceled. Is the peace meeting still on, like virtually?
It is. It's been changed. It's a date change, and you will have that. It's not called Nehemiah's assembly. I think it's called Amos's assembly now. And
is it tonight?
No, it's been changed. You're right, Mr. Mayor. It's been changed, and it's going to be done, I thought, virtual from what I've seen. And it's going to be done virtual.
Is it next Tuesday?
Hold on.
Let me look. Talk about something else for just a second, and I'll.
I've got it for Tuesday the 12th, right after. Well,
yes,
immediately after your
It's 7 p.m. on the 12th. Yes, that's correct. 7 p.m.
Next Tuesday, yes.
Okay. All right. So that's where I was having just, some second thoughts because it was the same day as our strategic planning. So I wanted to make sure. So that's still on as a virtual meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I know that so Mayor, do you have an update of, where we are or the questions they'll ask? I feel like I'm not up to speed.
Yeah, there's a singular question that they're going to ask us, which is, will we look to investigating the creation of a homeless housing trust fund? And by August, I think is the request. It doesn't commit that's created, is that we take a look and see how it's done. And there's a person that's done a trust fund kind of a consultant for several cities, Nashville being one of them, and has created the ability to try and to create a funding mechanism outside of the city's coffers. So this would be other people could contribute to this trust fund, as well as over time the city could decide to contribute something to it if they wanted to, but not necessarily in its formation period, for the purpose of single homeless parents housings beyond what other initiatives are taking place and allowing that to build. So it's an expansion desire on their part for tools to be able to accomplish that goal, which has been theirs, which is that single parents with kids that are homeless have housing.
Okay, and I know that when we met with them individually, I felt like they had a new metrics, that it was more restrictive on income than we anticipated or ever thought that it was when we went into this on 500 units. I knew that the 500 units were initially for families, and of course, things like the Talbot House, gifting of those units would not be family. The affordable housing that we're building, whether it's for seniors or vets, would not be included. And so it did make me a little depressed, thinking, that all of the things that we're doing to have affordable housing doesn't constitute what they had in their hopes for this 500 units. And so, it made me feel, I went into the meeting feeling excited that we'd made such a focus and an emphasis for affordable housing as a commission, that our community development department had gone through great lengths to do an audit of our properties, that in CRA we've incorporated it into our RFPs and our RFQs to incorporate percentage of units for multifamily for affordable. But when we met, it seemed like they were kind of restricting it to this small box of only families, and not only just families, only families that were like 80% of the median household income, or if that. So I didn't know who would take the lead on Tuesday, and these virtual meetings are difficult, especially if your internet's not perfect. And I just, I was feeling uneasy about what our role was or how it would flow, not kind of knowing what to expect.
So the movement away from those numbers per se has taken place for them, but not the desire for them, not the desire for us either. We'd love to see homeless single parents with kids in houses. And so it's the how-to. And so this is what they're really trying to do, is engage us in that discussion. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you. Just to add on to Commissioner Madden's comment. I was a little concerned about, and I'm not even sure yet if I can make it, but potential to run afoul of sunshine law if we're multiple commissioners are commenting on something we could vote on later in this virtual forum. And so, Palmer, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that. I could see potential problems with that if we're not careful.
Sure. I mean, the basic requirement of the sunshine laws is that if the body such as the city commission is going to discuss a matter amongst themselves that may foreseeably come before them for action, that meeting is subject to the sunshine law. So it certainly sounds like there's the potential for sunshine law issues to present themselves at this meeting. I don't know if it would make sense to just go ahead and notice the meeting so that there's no concerns or restrictions on your discussion. But
yeah, that's what I think has been done historically, Palmer, and should be done. Because it's their meeting. They disclose it. The media is certainly there, and so. But we do know what the question is in advance, and I don't see this as a confrontational group. I see this as concerned citizens who really work to try and find society deficits where there can be strengthened efforts and focus to bring solutions, big picture. And so that for them today is homeless parents, single parents with kids. Mr. Delgado.
Yeah,
and then
thank you, Mr. Mayor. And obviously, I want to echo some of the thoughts that Commissioner Madden had, because staff felt the same way when we originally met with the Peace Group, when staff had the opportunity to meet with them after each and every commissioner had an opportunity to meet with them. We felt the same way. Our last meeting, which took place a few months before COVID, the group brought up once again what you had just said, and we were kind of taken a little bit by surprise. One of the things that I think needs to be reiterated is the fact that the Fair Housing Act really prohibits us from discriminating when we're offering assistance for housing. And we did espouse that to the Peace Group, that there are some prohibitions that we as a city must utilize when we're expending funding for affordable housing. And you all have provided almost $500,000 already in affordable housing when you take into account the amount that came out of general fund as well as the CRA in order to kick off our program. So, I'm not trying to diminish what the Peace Group is asking for, but I can honestly tell you we felt the same way you did when we had our conversations with them late last year.
Yeah, I think we all shared that emotion. Any other comments? Stephanie, you're muted still. Go ahead. Do you have a comment on that, Stephanie?
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you for hearing me out, because I do think it was important just, to be able to talk among my colleagues, since they're addressing us as a team, and the team can only talk here before next Tuesday. So, just kind of to be able to talk that through. Thank you, Commissioner McLeod, for even bringing up the sunshine laws. I think this will be our second or third year, and I hadn't really thought about that. But and so my last 2 points. One, thankfully, Commissioner Franklin already brought up about the barbershops and salons. I know you all have received those emails, as have I. And I've had several phone calls from hairdressers and just desperate, to, get back into business and to do what they do. So whatever we could do. I was wondering if City Manager Delgado, if you felt like if they reached out to our state delegation, if that would be more effective, than reaching out to us, because it sounds like we're waiting on the governor.
Yes, I think anytime you have an opportunity to reach out to your elected officials at the state level, I would do that. Obviously, this commission, you all have not varied from what the governor's renderings have been on any of his executive orders. I suspect you won't. When and if the governor goes ahead and makes that decision. Obviously, that's a decision that falls on a state level compliance. So that would be a proper avenue for them to reach out to their elected officials regarding that at the state level.
Okay, and then my last one is, I know we had a lengthy discussion on Friday about opening up some outdoor space for our restaurants. I know we kind of decided it might be a little too soon to know what, even happens, whether they were overwhelmed by the response this week, or if people just really preferred doing curbside because they were still reticent to gather in the restaurants yet. So I've also heard from restaurateurs who said, I can't even hire my staff back for 25% occupancy. So I have to stay at curbside. So, that certainly, we need all of that information to make any kind of decision. So we're not going to be meeting until next Tuesday. So I didn't know if there was a way Julie could give us an update from what she's gathering, how this week goes, if people are, out and about and 25%'s, just fine to kind of incrementally stage their opening. Wonderful. If they think, oh my gosh, more people would love to be able to eat our food, but they need a little more space to be able to social distance, then could we call an emergency meeting and quickly, come up with something. So I didn't want to let another week go by without addressing that. I know we had great conversation on Friday, but I wanted to speak to my colleagues to see, are we waiting maybe to hear from Julie to see how things go this week? Like I said, we can't meet unless we call an emergency meeting. So I did want to make sure we talked about that before next Tuesday.
I think the status was that they were going to play it a little bit by year and see what they could morph to accomplish. Commissioner McCarley?
Do we have the purview to, I don't think, Mrs. Madden, can we increase their percentage of seating? I don't believe we can go ahead of the governor or the state on that. I mean, I understand putting things outside and maybe closing down a street or doing something in the park. We have purview over that and approving those things. But I just need clarity on what we can and cannot do.
We can't exceed the governor's 25%. Cannot. And I don't think would. Commissioner Walker?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thought that's what, the end of the conversation was, that Ms. Townsend was going to, look and check and see how this particular, going back to business, going back to having our restaurants reopened at the required situation at hand, which is 25%, and go from there. I thought that's what we had said, even as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, that would be the case. So I thought, because even she had some reservations in her conversation as we did have about putting things even more so out in what we call the streets or along the streets and that kind of thing. So I'm waiting to see what her report is going to tell us, or what her comments would be once she get a grip on how things going this week. It's just the first day, of course, today. So, we would know even more, I think, as this week goes by. But
I will say, just to address Commissioner McCarley's point, one of the things we talked about was 25% capacity is easy if you have 4 tables and it's 1 table out of those 4, or if it's exactly what the fire code says and you take 1/4 of that. But you could even take 1/4 of a fire code number and not be able to space 6 feet in social distance. So part of the rationale is to be able to expand your area to the outdoors to give people more space to be 6 feet apart and accommodate. And it did seem at the end of the meeting, we weren't even sure what the specifications were to constitute your 25%.
Yeah, the city manager Delgado.
I've had a chance to discuss that, and Dave Shep did some background legwork for us up in Tallahassee, and it is a bit ambiguous, but what he's hearing from the folks he's talked to, it's if the restaurant can utilize the 25% of their capacity, that's what it seems most folks are doing statewide. But Commissioner Madden's right; it depends on the size of the restaurant, how many tables they can fit in, and those type of things. But what we're hearing, it's 25% capacity.
But I think, it does not preclude their ability to do takeout. They can still do that volume on top of that. So that's part of, and we all know there's lots of people who aren't going to go to a restaurant in the first place. And if they're going out to eat, they're going out to eat by takeout. and that'll happen for months, for a contingent of our population. Yes, Commissioner Walker.
I'm not sure if Commissioner Madden is finished, but if she is, I want to go back to another subject that was just discussed prior to her comments, if I could, please, if she's finished.
Sure. Are you finished, Commissioner Madden? Yes, she is. Thumbs up.
There's back to the meeting with the on next Tuesday scheduled, virtual meeting with the peace organization, and not knowing whether all of us have had any contact about you said the question that would be raised or want to bring before us. I have not had any conversation with the organization regarding that question. Normally, we do have that kind of conversation with them about what they would present during that time. And I've been before, in this peace organization now 5-6 times, if not more, as they approached the various city and county officials and state as well regarding whatever the particular subject matter issues that are concerns they may want to have addressed. But not knowing this particular question until I just heard it from you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's something that I think if I heard you and heard even Mr. Delgado mention, I would have a concern about, trying to just be prepared to identify those that may be considered a particular segment of our population that would need housing, because we, as we did approve and moving forward, I think very quick as we did to say we would go along getting the 500 number that we all said we would agree upon for some type of affordable housing kind of a situation. But to just say it's just got to be for a certain segment of the population, I think that need to be discussed more so than just say, okay, single parents only, families only, homeless people only, whatever. Because I'm about having people, wherever they may fit, if they're out of a home and need to be placed in some kind of a situation that could be affordable, single, family, homeless, or whatever.
That's what our affordable housing does. It isn't prescriptive to the extent that we can carve out this amount for these people. It becomes available, and there are shifts in the market to apartments and that are difficult, and even how those apartments are built. So my recommendation would be, if you're comfortable in attending that meeting, come. If you're not, you don't need to feel an obligation to do so. And it's a virtual meeting. I will be there. I'm not going to be uncomfortable responding to the question that they asked or pursuing it to the extent that it makes sense for us. And that's all. There isn't a number that they're locking us down to. The real question is, will we take a look at an affordable housing trust that's designed for homeless single parents with children? That's the sense of the question. Yes or no? Okay. Peace is a group within our community, and I mean our community as county at large, that wants to help other people, but they're a voice. They're not. It's a decision on all commissions, both the county and other cities, basis on whether or not to respond to what's appropriate. My zoom out is, I don't think they are at large advocating doing something that's different from what our heartbeat is as a city in an appropriate way to the extent that we can accomplish it. But we can't, we always create the prescriptive solutions that would be desired. It's tough to dial those in on a larger scope basis. So what's imperative is that we have a concern, and from my standpoint, certainly that I'm listening to what they're saying and no more. I mean, that's the extent. I don't know if that's helpful or not. Any other questions?
Well, as for me, it helps a lot. I just, I don't want to get there on a virtual meeting and then be called on the carpet and asked a yes or no answer. I know Commissioner Franklin has mentioned this before, and then you worry your internet's going to go out and you can't explain yourself, and it's the one time you see them a year. And I appreciate what they're doing. I think that they are championing something that needs to be championed, and I give them great respect and honor for doing that. But I also then am accountable for what kind of commitment I give that I may be powerless to actually follow through on. So I want to take whatever I'm committing to personally seriously enough, and to go into it, kind of feeling like I feel comfortable with that. So thank you for spending a little extra time, and thank you, Commissioner Walker. I mean, I'll be there. If they're having it, I'll be there, and I will probably defer to you, Mayor, if they have some specific questions. But I feel better just having talked it through a little bit. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for bringing it up. Are there any other items? Well, seeing none, we could entertain a motion for adjourning. Commissioner Franklin? Oh, no, Commissioner McLeod, and a second from Commissioner Franklin. All those signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same. And we are adjourned. Thank you so much for your time and your very deliberate thought.